Fauci's back. He's back. The Fauci. Lord Fauci returns. So Fauci, who is consistently wrong on a lot of things, and, I get it. Medicine is obviously an interesting enterprise, to say the least. Facts change. The whole idea of science is that science is refutable, right? That you constantly challenge hypotheses with new and better hypotheses and new and better evidence, right? The problem I have with Fauci is Fauci says things as if it's dispositive and a conclusion has been reached, and then months later changes his mind on that stuff. So here's the first video. Here's Fauci on MSNBC yesterday. He's puzzled as to why Texas, which scrapped its mask mandate and opened up its businesses, despite the claims to medical panic porn folks out there that, oh my gosh, if you open your states, there's going to be mass death everywhere. Coronavirus infections are going to go through the roof, despite the fact that Texas opened up and liberals watch for the visuals. Cases went down. They went down. Down. That's the opposite of up, down. And Fauci just can't seem to explain it. So he moves the goalposts again. He says, wait. Yes, we haven't seen new infections, but they could happen later. Check this out.
Yeah, it can be confusing because you may see a lag and a delay, because often you have to wait a few weeks before you see the effect of what you're doing right now. There are a lot of things that go into that. I mean, when you say that they've had a lot of activity on the outside, like ball games, I'm not really quite sure. It could be they're doing things outdoors. It's very difficult to just one-on-one compare that. You just have to see in the long range. I hope they continue to tick down. If they do, that would be great. But there's always the concern when you pull back on methods, particularly things like indoor dining and bars that are crowded, you can see a delay and then all of a sudden tick right back up. We've been fooled before by situations where people begin to open up, nothing happens, and then all of a sudden, several weeks later, things start exploding on you. So we got to be careful we don't prematurely judge that.
We've been fooled before, all right. I think he missed the irony of that statement. Now, one of the things I hope and pray, I mean that I deliver to you on this show. It's a lot of stress doing this show. I mean, listen, first world problems. I'm no one's victim. I'm not a snowflake, but I really do. I stress out. It's not about the money or any of that stuff. Don't I stress out, Guy? You hear me in the morning. I stress out because I know you spend a lot of time with me every day, and it's such a tremendous honor that for an hour every day you've decided to spend some time with me, and I freak out about the content because I want to make sure I'm not wasting your time ever. But one of the things I'm most proud of on this show is I don't try to give you easy answers when there are none. We just did it. There's nothing I would like more to say to you now. Screw it. Vote for a corporate tax hike. Let these corporations pay. They want to support the destruction of America? Let them pay more. The answer is not that easy, folks. Sometimes life is bad choices versus really bad choices. Liberals don't paint the world that way. Everything's Pollyannish. What does that have to do with this? This is what I dislike so much about Fauci's approach to this. He never considers the alternative. Nothing with him is couched anymore. Everything is an opinion that's dispositive until it's not. Don't wear a mask. You better wear a mask. Businesses shouldn't open. Well, businesses open and nothing happening. Well, something could happen later. It's never, he doesn't seem to be skeptical of himself. The fatal conceit, to kind of quote Hayek. And I ask you, has he ever considered the alternative? That yes, the idea of a lockdown sounds simple, but number one, maybe people can't lock down because they have to do crazy things like go to the supermarket and eat. And secondly, well, what's the cost of the lockdowns compared to the cost of the coronavirus? Lockdowns, teen suicides, lost productivity through education loss, jobs lost. Has anybody ever considered that? No, not Fauci. He seems to be constantly on the side of continued lockdowns, despite evidence to the contrary, and despite doing what we do on this show, considering all alternatives. That yes, maybe the coronavirus really sucks. Not maybe, it does. But maybe the price of the lockdowns really sucks worse. Suicides, lost jobs, education. Has he ever thought about that? He's supposed to be a scientist. Here, I'll show you again how he just takes the opposite side seemingly on positions all the time with no thought given to maybe I should be a little more deliberate in my comments. Here's Fauci in 2020 on the situation at the border with coronavirus, making some pretty conclusive comments here. Hey, we should be worried about people crossing the border potentially infected. Check this out.
You know, I know a lot of Canadians are watching the situation down here in the U.S., and they're very worried about it. And there certainly doesn't seem to be a huge appetite, for example, for reopening the border. But I'm curious, your perspective as a medical expert, is there still a benefit in travel restrictions? Do they serve a purpose at this point in controlling the spread of the virus?
You know, in some respects, it does. I mean, if you have an area, a country as a whole, or an area of the country with very, very low activity, obviously there's concern about letting people in from the outside other countries in which there's a high rate of infection.
Okay. Fauci in 2020, more than eager to comment on pretty common sense situation, right? We have a pandemic. Maybe we shouldn't let people into the country who aren't screened or maybe carrying this deadly virus into the country. Pretty common sense, right? Well, here's Fauci again in the Washington Post. Paulina Vargas, Washington Post. Fauci pushes back on GOP criticisms, calling claims bizarre. What does he mean? Well, whereas Fauci was more than eager to talk about the border in 2020, gave a pretty common sense answer, here's Fauci now. Quote, I have nothing to do with the border, the White House chief medical advisor said, adding that he acknowledged that there's a very difficult situation at the border and Biden administration officials are trying as best as they can to solve it. Sounds like a political statement to me. Lord Fauci, back and forth again. Maybe be a little more cautious and critical of yourself and your own comments, like we try to do on this show. Maybe be a little cautious and critical of your political messiahs, like Tucker Carlson was last night with Asa Hutchinson, and not accept anything or anyone reflexively anymore unless they do the things we want, which is supporting freedom and liberty. Republican ideas. What I thought were American ideas.